and we will connect with Dr. Potowski. Are you there, Kim?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and we can see you.
Thank God, because I did my
hair. So it's all you. Tell us, what do you think are the best practices for teaching heritage language learners?
Best practices. Well, here's a book that I'm happy to send everybody who's here today. So that's what, 227 pages, and you want me to kind of sum it up here real quick. I think I'd say, first of all, let me say thank you. Thank you to Florencia for inviting me here today, and thanks to all of you for being here today. It's a real honor and a privilege always to work with Florencia. In case you did not know, and I'm sure this topic will come up at some point, she helped me tremendously on the second edition of a textbook for heritage speakers, and if it were not for her input, I don't think it would have been born. She was like the midwife.
Okay, well, she's exaggerating, everybody. She's exaggerating. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, see, she's just way too modest. But anyway, so thank you, Florencia, for the invitation. The work you do is fantastic, and thanks to all of you for being here. Okay, so if I had to summarize, I tried to summarize along with my colleagues, Sarah Beaudry and Cynthia Ducar, our thoughts on what are best practices in teaching heritage learners. In this little thing right here, someone said to me, okay, elevator talk kind of thing, like what do you think are the best, sort of some of the best bullet points, right? I would say making it very student-centered is super important. You've got to know who your students are. Sometimes I'll get these emails from people who say, oh, what book do you use? I want to use it. Or, oh, what placement test do you use? I want to use it. And I say, I'm happy to share everything with you, but what if my students are different from yours? And if my students are similar to yours, what if my goals for them are different from yours? So the first thing we need to do is do a analysis of what it is that our heritage speakers can do already well, and what it is that they can't do well yet. The things that they can already do well, you don't include in your curriculum. Now that sounds like a big duh kind of point, but you'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, how many classrooms I've been in where they'll have heritage speakers spend 40 minutes filling in the blanks with, artículos definidos. And you're like, really? Do they have problems with el libro, los libros? Why are you doing this? Oh, because that's what's in the book. And then you look at the book and it's a second language book, right? So that's an issue. Anyway, so you do this needs analysis. You see what it is they can already do, and you put that aside. You see what it is that they cannot do yet. From that list of things they cannot do well yet, you need to choose your goals. You probably can't cover all of them. And you and I might have a real similar group of students, and you might choose ABC of what they can't do as your goals, and I might choose DEF of what they can't do as my goals. So once you've got that completed, and you know what your goals are, that's when you go and look for the book. You look for the book first, you're putting the cart before the horse, right? Is there a perfect book out there for what your students need and what you've decided you want them to work on? Maybe, maybe not. Is any book perfect? No. We all know no textbook is perfect. Some professors, instructors work very well without a textbook at all. More power to them. I need to have something to work with. In fact, that's how these get written, because there's nothing out there that addresses things the way you'd like them to. So again, if I had to sum it up in one phrase, best practices in heritage language teaching start with the students. They don't start with, here are some great books out there, here are some great goals I've heard about out there, here's what my friend uses, or here's what my district wants me to use. It starts with, who are my students, what can they already do, what can they not do well yet, and what do I want them to be able to develop.
All right, thank you so much. So we are ready for questions. So if looks like, here we go. It looks like Joel. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Joel is ready to ask a question. So go ahead and turn on your microphone and let us know what your question is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to ask a question. And I would like to ask Dr. Potowski, what would be the best way to, or the first thing I would say, to handle the heritage speakers or learners situation in countries of recent massive immigration? So right now I teach in the US, but I am originally from Italy, and we are seeing massive population of second generation immigrants in the public school system, and these things are not really being handled or yet,
Right.
I guess. So what would you suggest in this type of situation?
Actually, Joelle, thank you for your question. I have a tiny bit of experience. In Genova, I was invited up there. You may know Laura Sanfelice, Nili Bonomi,
Yes.
and they're working with heritage speakers in Genova. Apparently, they're mostly Ecuadorian. Also in Milan, we have a lot of heritage learners. I would probably get in touch with those two gals because they're sort of working really hard to create programs. Two programs I know of that they have created include having an after-school heritage Spanish program for these kids. And this is K through 8. Are you at the high school level, Joelle? Sorry, you probably already turned your mic off and now you're turning it back on. If you're at the high school level, I am not sure of any programs in Italy at the high school level. But of course, let's broaden it and not just think about Italy. Let's think about other contexts where perhaps this concept is fairly new. Again, you may wish to speak with Milene Bonomi and Laura Sanfelice, who've been doing a lot of this work on the ground with heritage speakers in these new contexts. Actually, here's something I wanted to mention. Florencia, tell me if you think this is crazy. So this book just came out. It is the Routledge Handbook of Spanish as a Heritage Language. It's got, I don't know, 30, 40 chapters in it. I'd be happy to send you the link so that you can see what the different chapters are, and I'd be happy to send each of you one chapter that you chose that you would be interested in. So Joelle, you might be interested in the one on Italy, or maybe, you know, Switzerland or Germany or Australia, or these contexts that are not the United States, where it is fairly less heard of, and people are still sort of tanteando un poco en la oscuridad to figure out what to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Joel, for your question. So the next person who has a question is Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm actually representing the University of New Mexico. So Naomi says hi.
Oh, well.
And I...
Wait, did you see our book just came out? Me and Naomi made a baby, look.
I'm very excited to read it, and she's been doing a good job of sharing the information with us over here. So
wonderful.
Thank you for taking the time to answer some of our questions. You mentioned a little bit the ways that heritage language learners maybe that their learning process is a little bit different than those that are second language learners. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and maybe also is there a way that they can be mutually beneficial to have both students in the same context, so a mixture of two? And have you seen any successful implementations of that anywhere?
Right. So how are heritage language learners' processes, that's the word you used, different from those of second language learners? These are very interesting questions. I'm not sure we have very clear answers. It's going to depend. We know, first of all, that heritage learners are a very heterogeneous group, okay? Some have lots of comprehension, right? What we would call receptive knowledge. Linguists don't use the word passive anymore. We don't talk about passive knowledge of a language. There's nothing passive about processing a linguistic system and understanding it, right? But some may be receptive only and not be productive. Others may be quite productive, but they experience certain challenges in the ways that they express themselves. Those challenges may just be in register, okay? So they may only sort of be able to produce informal registers because they're raised in the United States, where they're educated largely in English or entirely in English. those gaps may be more than just register. It may be that they honestly can't get across. They don't have the words or the syntax to get across basic ideas, and they move back to English with some frequency. So we've got a very heterogeneous group of learners. So what their process is, some we might say are just acquiring a formal register. Others are trying to develop some syntax. Others who don't speak it, have not spoken it, but understand it, are trying to develop the capacity to speak it. So what those processes are is going to vary very, very widely depending on what sort of flavor of person you've got of the three sort of points on the continuum that I've just described. The people, I think, on the furthest end, those who we would consider very, very proficient, those who maybe came when they were 5 or 6, etc., or second generation with immigrant parents and their firstborn, their Spanish is quite strong. What they're engaging in, I argue, is not really language acquisition in the same way that we talk about L2 students. I might call it linguistic development, acquisition of a second register. I don't think it's second dialect acquisition, and I'm not sure that it's language acquisition. If you want to call it language acquisition, then you could call it that in the same way that when I, as a native monolingual English speaker, showed up to college, right, and had to take an English class, did I acquire English? If you want to call it that, yeah. I might call it that I expanded my English repertoire, which I'm doing every day, which all of us do every day. And then further down that continuum, you've got students who are actually acquiring things, I think, in the sense that we mean it when we talk about language acquisition. So your question was, are their processes different? It depends where they are on the continuum. But yes, I think in general, their processes are different for most of them. The path, we could say, to their proficiency has been different. So let me clarify that with an example. Let's say you take 2 kids, an L2 kid and a heritage kid, and you give them some quote-unquote proficiency measure, and they come out the same. So you think, oh, they have the same Spanish proficiency. Well, guess what? Cuando indagan un poco más, you see that the heritage speaker has a much different set of competencies, and the second language learner has a much different set of competencies. Our second language learners are probably going to know metalinguistic terminology. They can fill in the blank with the forma correcta del pasado perfecto del subjuntivo, right? Whereas our heritage speakers will struggle with that. They'll say it, they'll produce it all the time, a lot of them, but they won't know how to tell you lo que se llama y cuando se usa y todo eso. So their path to acquisition is very different. So there's a lot we don't know. I think I'm just going to say that. There's a lot we don't know about, first of all, is it language acquisition? Is it linguistic growth? What is it? Depends on the population. And secondly, how does it happen? I think you can count on dos manos y te sobran dedos, the number of studies who have looked at like a particular morphosyntactic form, right, that a group of heritage learners was shown to not have pre-treatment, and then they were given a treatment, and then they were studied post-treatment to see whether they acquired said form. We need a lot more of that kind of work in order to answer your very, very good question. And your other question was about mixing them. Can it be beneficial? You know, last I read, 60% of United States colleges and universities that have significant heritage speaker populations, right, that would warrant a heritage speaker program, actually have those programs. Now that's good news. That's más de la mitad. But that means that 40% of our colleges and universities have significant portions of heritage learners, right, Latino students with proficiency in Spanish who are stuck in what I call buenos dias Spanish. Okay? I remember this high school teacher who said to me, ay, por favor, no me quites a mis heritage speakers, no me quites a mis latinos, porque me encanta tenerlos allá. I'm sure. They're fantastic. No me los quites porque me entienden todos. Son los únicos que se ríen cuando digo algo chistoso. Y además, ayudan a los cueritos, right? And my response to that is quite strong, because my thought is, you know what, that's not why they're in school, right? To be these sort of unpaid tutors for the people learning Spanish as a second language. Your question was, can this be mutually beneficial? I think if you can make the help go both ways, then perhaps yes. And Melissa Bowles, actually Florencia's colleague down at Urbana, has done quite a bit of work on this, and she has a chapter in here, so maybe that's the one that you will want, because like I said, you all get one of these chapters. I'll send it to you. She's the person who's worked the most on that and probably has more insightful things to say about combined classrooms. I'm just going to come out and tell you my position was, is, and will always be, they need to be separated. They need to be separated when the linguistic proficiency warrants it. But I get that that's not always possible for either numerical, financial, or political reasons. We do have these mixed classrooms. What you end up doing is what Maria Carrera, who also has a chapter in here, we'll send it to you if you want it, calls differentiating instruction.
And Maria Carrera is doing a work for us later in November.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there, y'all.
It's not, no, it's online. It's online. It's not here in Champaign, but it's online.
No, por eso, be there. Everybody's got to log in and be there, because I'm going to be there. If you wanted to sum up differentiated instruction in 4 words, it is more work for you. It really is. But she's absolutely got her finger on the pulse of the best practices in how you differentiate instruction. It's not about, you're a heritage speaker, so you answer 10 questions. You're a second language learner, so you answer 5 questions. You've got to differentiate the content. You've got to differentiate the assessment, and you've got to differentiate what they're actually doing in the classroom. So yes, can it be successful? Was your question? Yes, it can. But it takes a person way more talented than I am, at least in a basic language classroom. I deal with mixed classrooms all the time where I teach in these sort of upper levels, right? So when you're talking about Introducción a la Gramática or El Español de los Estados Unidos or anything that's sort of in the minor and major courses, of course they all come together, the second language learners and the heritage speakers, and there's still some need for differentiation there. But when you've got students who are still acquiring a language together with people who already speak that language, and they're not children in the dual language context, I think you're doing a disservice to everybody. The heritage speakers are intimidated by the second language learners who have all this meta-linguistic knowledge and who they perceive, oh, he speaks correctly, I speak bad, okay? But the second language learners also feel intimidated by the heritage speakers because they hear them talking and go, oh my God, what's up with that? And then the instructor, of course, goes insane. I know I did. I found it incredibly challenging and difficult. So what I'm saying, no, I mean, she invited me anyway, that my bottom line is you've got to separate them in some way at the beginning levels.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a very nice short overview. I appreciate it.
Yes, it's a very complex topic, so thank you for summarizing, Kim. That was great. And I think a lot of people were curious about the situation with the mixed classes. A lot of people had questions about that, so I'm glad that you've addressed it, and you addressed it, you know, in depth. We have several people waiting to ask questions. We are going to go with Melissa. Melissa has a question. Melissa, are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Buenas tardes, Profesora Potowski. Thank you so much for having us. I'm from the University of California, Davis. Dr. Cecilia Colombi, say hi, and also Dr. Barbara Bailey. I'll say hi. Thank you. So my question has to do with, or I'm interested in learning a little more about how to better support graduate students, instructors who are teaching heritage language learners. And with this, I kind of want to know more about how to, just in that, and also like what method, how to set a method course for these instructors of how they could better teach. Thank you.
Right. So I would love to tell you, Karen te llaman, ¿verdad?
Melissa.
Melissa, perdón, I got another name up in my thing.
No, it's perfect.
You know, I'm like a grandma with this tech stuff. So Melissa, when it comes to training, you know, my instructors who work in our program, which, oh my God, when I took this program over in 2002, we had 3 levels of Heritage 1 and 3 levels of Heritage 2, okay? Mm-hmm. Now it's 12 and 12, so it's like, boom. It's a lot, and so there's a lot more instructors, right, that I'm dealing with. I would love to tell you that I had them all take my Spanish 440 course in which we, read this text and spend 16 weeks unpacking it and really, really getting our hands dirty in a lot of these topics. But I can't require that all my instructors take this course. So what I do, in fact, Florencia, I'll pull up the link here real quick. So I have a website, potowski.org, and then I think it's potowski.org/taller para instructores. Here it is, content. Sometimes when I see it, it looks like taller, but it really says taller. There it is. This is what I do minimally for all my instructors. Not all of them are grad students, by the way. We have a lot of lecturers here as well. But I have them go through these activities. What are the activities? Well, they need to read this book and then answer in writing a series of questions, just sort of handpicked one because they can't do all of it. They need to visit 2 veteran instructors and write up observations. I need to go see them in their basic language program classes because that's where everybody lands when they come to study, right? Their graduate programs.
Right.
They get a TA basic language program. So I guess I'm pretty pleased to say that mine is a little more, I get to pick and choose who comes into it. So I go see them and make sure they have sort of basic, classroom management skills, etc. And then we have an interview. And really the interview is one of the most important things for me because my main goal is to be sure that they've really digested this and that they're not going to be prescriptivist jerks. Just going to come out and say it like that. I need them to understand the sociolinguistic realities of Spanish in the United States. And I'll tell you this. My sense is that there are 3 basic flavors, if you will, of instructors, okay? You've got your raised in Latin America or Spain, okay? You've got your second language learners like me, so your white people, your black people, your Asian people, whatever, who learn Spanish as a second language. And then you've got your heritage speakers themselves, okay? I have had, over the past 600 years, instructors from all 3 of the categories I just described. And I can tell you that the best instructors and the worst instructors have come from all 3. So your background does not guarantee that you will be what I consider an effective and strong and capable heritage language teacher. So I have made mistakes. I have put people in front of classes for 16 weeks that when somehow they passed the sort of initial interview and written exercises and observations, etc. And then when they got in front of the classroom, they morphed or showed their true colors. I don't know. And I lose sleep over that, and I think, oh my God, 23 students have suffered with this person for 16 weeks, and it's my fault. But I'd say for the most part, I'm pretty good at picking out who's gonna treat them well, And that also means being exigente, right? It's not enough to just respect them and then just be jokey all semester. I've seen that too. Una maestra que no les exigía nada, pero que era su mejor amiga, pues tampoco quieres eso in any kind of class. So my point being, how do I support them? That was your question. Well, first I tried to prepare them and select them well, right? And then we observe them twice. I observe my new instructors. I observe them once. My assistant then observes them once as well. If they need a little more support, we will each observe them a second time. If they need more support, we will have them observe another veteran instructor again. We don't have very many meetings during the semester. We have one at the beginning and one in the middle. But we do a lot of shared stuff online, and we do shared stuff sort of in our office and people speaking with each other informally. I like to think, and this is something that I think my assistant right now, Lydia, is interested in pursuing more formally, asking them anonymously, right, what do you need? Do you need more support in X or Y or Z? How can we help you be a more effective instructor? So I guess I'm telling you what I have done, but also saying that I could probably do more in seeing what it is that they need to support them. I don't know if you had a specific place you were sort of heading with that question about support.
No, not exactly. I think you covered it, and thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. Gracias.
So Thank you, Melissa. We have a question that is a little bit related, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it for Karen. She typed it up about 15 minutes ago. What experiences have you had with shifting the mindset of a staff or colleague from a deficit to an asset approach to honoring all language repertoires? So how do you get them to not view them as being deficient or lacking, to get them more on board with the whole thing about the second register acquisition?
Right. So I've never hired anybody to teach in my program for whom I had to do that. Like, if you sort of need that growth, I ain't hiring you. I ain't putting you in front of the students. If you're already sort of at that place of the deficit model, bye-bye. Bye, Felicia. But what I can say, I have actually two examples, I guess I could say. Three. One is that when I teach my undergrads, and this is not answering your question because you're asking me about instructors, but I will tell you that when teaching undergrads, most of whom are heritage speakers themselves at my campus, either with the book that Naomi and I just did, or with the Spanish in the U.S. book. It's a book I did with Ana Maria Escobar. Both of these courses start with students who are heritage speakers themselves and believe that their Spanish is substandard. They've been told their whole lives by their families that their Spanish is bad. And it's marvelous to watch them a lo largo de 16 semanas, like now del curso, they've changed halfway through it. It takes longer than I always think it will, but halfway through it, they'll stop saying things like, but what's the right way to say it? And then they start to go, no, if a community says it, then it's correct. It might not be prestigious, but it's correct. Y a mí me salen las lágrimas every single semester. It's so wonderful to see that transformation. But it takes 16 weeks. It takes 16 weeks. So that's the undergrads. As for, I said I had three anecdotes to tell you. Instructors who take this class, some of them will start, and this is in English, and it's taught for heritage speakers of, teachers who teach heritage Korean, Chinese, Arabic. I've had several different languages. And several have written me at their reflections at the end of the semester, wow, I started very prescriptivist. They learned that word. I was very prescriptivist and learned to be more descriptivist. And so that's another space where that happens. But again, it's 16 weeks. And then the third piece is not a success story. It's a frustration story. It's with my own colleagues, my own esteemed colleagues, because my undergrads will come through my course, and maybe halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, they'll say, well, you know what, Professor so-and-so, I wrote aiga, or I said fuistes, or I said X the other day, and she put her hands over her ears and said, oh my God, what is that? That's wrong. And of course, I like to die, right? I like the plots right there when I hear this to my own colleagues, right? I'll say I've been here, 600 years, and I have not managed to sidle up to them at the copy machine and be like, so, it's just, for some people, it's not going to happen. So this is a good teaching moment for my undergrads to say, you know what, honey, you're going to find people like this out in the world. You've learned from, me and this course material, etc., that there are prestigious and non-prestigious varieties, how they got to be that way, the fact that the variants that you use are not incorrect, they're just stigmatized, etc. You have a couple choices. You could say nothing and let this person sort of offend you and just put your tail between your legs. You could confront them, which has risks as well. Or you could say, you know what, I get it. They want me to do X, and they're using incorrect terminology. They're ignorant. They're saying the way I speak is wrong, but I know it's not wrong. I just know that it's informal or stigmatized. I get it. Most of the world is like that, and I'm just going to do what I can to, produce what this person is expecting of me. But I will tell you something I'm going to do. I'm so excited. This is the first time I'm going to do it. Maybe because I made full professor 2 years ago, and, I just don't care anymore what my colleagues, none of them outrank me anymore. So what we're going to do in my final project in this class is that we are going to write a letter, an open letter, 1 page, no more. Open letter, bullet points, easy to read, to my colleagues, basically. We're going to all write it together, and we're going to say, like, so, dude, you know, when you say that this is incorrect, or no se dice, you're a highly educated person. You're showing ignorance, though, when you say that, because cuando 50 millones de personas dicen algo, se dice, sí se dice. No será lo más formal, y claro, usted no está mal en exigir que produzcan otra variante en un contexto formal, pero usted sí se equivoca cuando tilda de incorrecto tal variedad. Y además, you're being a real jerk when you say, oh my God, me sangran los oídos. Like, you're in the wrong line of work, honey. Si te sangran los oídos when you hear different varieties of Spanish, you should have, like, maybe thought about being an electrician, because you're going to have a rough life. You're going to have a rough life.
Okay, Kim, a lot of people are loving this. Can you share that open letter? Is that something that we can share with participants?
Ay, Dios mío, yes. My students will die when they hear that you guys want to see it. Yes, I absolutely will.
Thank you. And I have to share on behalf of another colleague, Claudia Olguin. So she created these wonderful resources called Empowering Learners of Spanish. She has a ton of lessons and activities and everything. So I'll share the link there. So if you're thinking of how do I approach things like sociolinguistics with my students, they develop so many activities and lessons. So check those out. Okay, so we're ready.
Claudia's the bomb. She's the bomb.
Yes, Claudia's the bomb. Yes. So
yes, she's my academic little sister. Y'all need to know that, because we both studied with Ana Maria Escobar. So I get to claim her a little. You know.
So okay, so we're ready for Karen Flores to ask her question. Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Potowski, for being here. And I just want to say that what you just talked about with varieties of Spanish resonated with me so well. I took a course over the summer with a couple of instructors from the Universidad of Salamanca who heard of you, who raved about you, and they agree completely with what you said about the fact that we have to approach this in a way that makes our kids feel like what they say value, and, you know, their traditions, their family. They cannot feel these awful, basically feelings that unfortunately we're having them experience by not understanding that variety is part of, the present live language that Spanish is, and ever changing. So thank you for that. My question was, I have a mixed class, and I have 5 kids in this mixed class that are, of course, above and beyond. And so I'm doing a study. I'm trying to do a research project, because I'm also doing a master's, and I wanted to focus on them. So I'm going to learn by interviewing them. I'm going to go ahead and try to get to, it's always me trying to figure out, how do I help them? What's going on with them? How can I do this or that? I'm going to be interviewing them and having them tell me what their experience is like, what motivates them, what makes them disinterest. Even though I think I know the answers, I want to hear from them. So I want to make sure that I, of course, also frame my research around concepts or theories or models that can really go ahead and help me do this the best way I can. So I was wondering if you could share with me, are there any works that you would recommend that would be something definitely that I should include in my work? Theories in regards to any parts of any areas of the heritage language learner, or concepts or models that I should definitely include in my research work as a way to frame or to give, to guide my work or give validity to my work?
Meaning work on how heritage learners are experiencing a mixed classroom?
Right. I mean, I feel like I know how they feel, and I feel like I may know what motivates them and what gets them to disengage. But I will be going and interviewing them and conducting surveys. But as I do this, I also need to go ahead and basically put a framework around my own work by looking at some maybe theories or concepts or models. So I know that there's a lot out there when it comes to language acquisition, but are there 2 that you would definitely say, you know what, this one's probably the one that you want to definitely include as part of your framework, because I'm dealing specifically with heritage language learners?
¿Cómo se llama esta niña? Rachel Shostak has a very good piece. Creo que salió in Spanish in Context. Good Lord, I should know that, because I edit that journal. I think it was in Spanish in Context que salió el artículo de ella, where she interviewed students in their heritage language class. Was it a mixed class? This is a long time ago. Check out Rachel Shostak's work in general. I had a piece, oh my God, it was the very first thing I ever published. It was done down in Urbana with heritage speakers who were, you know, in Spanish 2 or Spanish 3. And we did focus group interviews, and that came out, quiero decir, like in 2002 in the ADFL Bulletin. You might want to check that.
You remember the name of that?
Yeah, just look for my name in ADFL.
Oh, yeah, I've seen your work. You have a lot of stuff out there, but if you remember this one as one that
only published in ADFL Bulletin. So
I'm sorry, you were cutting out. I couldn't hear the last few phrases. What did you say?
ADFL Bulletin. That's the only thing I have in there. So check that out.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr.
Yeah, that's kind of an old piece. Rachel Shostak is going to have much more. So if you look at her piece and then her references, they'll be much more recent.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Kim, and thank you, Karen. We have Kristen ready to ask her question. So Kristen, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Potowski, for sharing your expertise with us. I am just starting a heritage language class at the high school level in Iowa.
You go, girl.
Thank you.
In Iowa, you're next door. Oh my gosh.
Look at you. So I don't have a textbook, and but it's super exciting. It's but I feel like I need a little bit of a map, and I'm wondering what you think about for what kind of standards to align with. Would you recommend the actual standards so far? What I've done is I've taken sort of AP themes and begun with those, and then essential questions, and developing the curriculum to suit the needs of my students as I learn more about them. We're exploring identity. But I'll tell you one glitch that's a part of the puzzle. Right now, we want to make sure that students are prepared for college and that they have the language requirements. And it seems like SCED codes, I'm learning a little bit about that kind of thing, that they need to have 4 years. And so our school is wanting the heritage Spanish basically to align with Spanish, the traditional 1, 2, 3, 4. So just have that in mind as you share your thoughts on direction and
okay, not knowing enough about what Iowa's 1, 2, 3, 4 is. I mean, I am familiar with ACTFL. You mentioned ACTFL, and you mentioned AP, I think, didn't you?
I did.
Okay. So there hasn't been a lot. We know. Okay, my brain's all over the place with your question. We know that over 60% of students who take the AP language Spanish exam, not the lit, the AP language, over 60% are heritage speakers. So this is, look it up. It's on Wikipedia. This is a de facto heritage speaker issue. Okay. So, and I've always said that heritage speakers, even if the high school class is not officially designated AP, they absolutely can. They have the right to sit for the AP exam at the end of the school year. Homeschool students can do it. Anybody can do it. And so I've actually waltzed into underperforming Chicago schools, public high schools, and said, how would you like 200 students to pass an AP exam? And the principal's head spins around and says, how can I do that? Said, well, all you got to do is spend every Friday about 20 minutes with your heritage speakers focusing on how to take this test. And most of them will get a 3. Some will get a 4. Some will get a 5. That's not entirely your question, though. How do you align? It sounds like you're asking what you're being asked to align a heritage speaker curriculum that you're going to create with pre-existing standards that are for second language learners. The ideal answer is that you need to run for the Iowa Board of Ed and get them to get a clue. I'm actually trying to do something similar with ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education. Probably most states are like this. You all know we don't have a federal educational system. We have a federal education entity, which I won't talk about right now because I just ate and we don't want to hear about what's her name. But each state has its own licensure board. And in the state of Illinois and all of the other 49 states, you become licensed or certified to be a Spanish teacher, right? In the state of Illinois, it's K through 12. Other states do have a 9 through 12, sort of something separate. Then you show up to your high school with your second language teaching knowledge, your second language teaching textbook, your second language teaching everything, and you might be the bomb. You might be the best second language teacher on the planet. And then you show up and your principal says, oh, I got a heritage speaker class. Mama knows, you got to go teach that for me. And you've never seen it, heard of it. You don't know what it is. They're completely different, right? And the boards just don't get this. And if we make the comparison to English, it becomes very clear. Let's say you show up to college and you want to be an English teacher, okay? You have to make a choice. Do I want to teach English as a second language? Do I want to teach English as a native language arts? Those are different certifications, different programs of study. They're housed in different colleges. And if you show up to your high school and you're hired as the ESL teacher, English as a second language teacher, your principal cannot, by law, take you and go, okay, I need you to teach native English language arts, because it's completely different, okay? But in modern languages, we kind of haven't gotten the memo yet, okay? Before I retire or die, whichever comes first, I would love for ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education, to recognize this difference and create an endorsement in teaching heritage languages, such that no principal in the state can take someone who's got zero training in teaching heritage languages and put them in front of heritage language teachers. That just underscored your problem. It didn't answer it or provide you any relief whatsoever. I don't even know how to answer that. You should write me separately. Maybe we can go have coffee since you're next door in Iowa, and we can put our heads together and think about ways that you can address the standards that they're asking you to address in these alignments that are kind of ludicrous in a way that makes sense to them.
All right, thank you, Kim. I like how you just want to go out for coffee with somebody who lives in Iowa, like it is literally next door. Okay,
it is next door.
It might take an hour or two. All right, so
this
next
is
question. Yes, we have Sonia Botero ready to ask her question. So Sonia, go ahead.
Hi, Sonia.
Sonia, are you there? I don't know if Sonia can hear me. All right, let's go with Colleen. Colleen Hamilton had a question. Colleen? Oh, Sonia is ready, maybe? Are you ready now, Sonia?
¿Me oyen?
Sí, we can hear you.
Bueno, buenas tardes, doctora. Es un placer estar ahora con más contacto con usted. Y yo voy a hablar en mi idioma nativo porque, como decía Celia Cruz, my English is not very good looking. Yo llevo varios años estudiando acerca de la enseñanza del español para hablantes del español. Y he leído mucho, estudiado mucho, acabo de escribir una tesis doctoral acerca de la motivación y del currículo, pero algo que se me ha quedado a mí y lo estoy luchando esta semana, sobre todo, es la enseñanza de la ortografía. Yo veo que los chicos difícilmente identifican los acentos. Yo creo que es por la interferencia de otra lengua. Yo quisiera algunos tips, algunos trucos para que estos niños aprendan la ortografía. Y la otra pregunta es con respecto a la gramática, sobre todo que todos esos libros de enseñar español vienen con gramática y los niños, por lo menos en mi escuela, ya se les está haciendo de un lado la enseñanza de la gramática. Gracias.
Bueno, Sonia, puede ser que no te guste para nada mi respuesta en cuanto a la ortografía. we can agree to disagree, pero mi opinión es que ni tú, ni yo, la Florencia, ni nadie escribe nada hoy en día de importancia en ninguna lengua sin el apoyo de una máquina, sin el apoyo de una computadora que cuenta con un revisor de ortografía. Entonces yo rechazo rotundamente el hacer a los chicos memorizar listas de palabras con B alta, B chica, con SCZ, no. Yo lo que hago es enseñarles a usar un revisor de ortografía, un spell check en español, en Word. Ahora, ¿el revisor de ortografía te pesca todos los errores? No. Te pesca un, ¿qué quieres? Un 85%, ¿no? Hay un 15% de palabras que no te va a pescar. Si tú escribes comió sin acento, te lo va a subrayar, punto. Le haces un right click y lo corriges. Si tú escribes mi mamá habló a mi papá sin acentos y te sale mi mamá habló con mi papá, la máquina no te subraya nada, aunque todo lo tengas mal. ¿Por qué? Porque mamá, hablo y papá son palabras bien hechas, bien escritas en español. Entonces, lo que hacemos nosotros,
Hey, Kim.
y le consta a Florencia,
Hey, Kim.
que mande.
Some people don't speak Spanish and they're asking if we could possibly translate or answer in English.
So a lot of people agree to disagree with me, but my opinion is I do not teach spelling rules. I do not teach what's written with a B or a V or what's written with an SC or Z, all these common spelling problems in Spanish. I teach students how to use a spell checker. Why? Because none of us here in this forum write anything of importance that we send to anyone without using a spell checker. Okay? Nobody sits there with a pen and writes something, right? That matters in a sense that it needs to have correct orthography. Okay? People can agree to disagree with me. Some instructors are, they feel students need to know. I don't. I teach them how to use a spell checker. A spell checker will catch, I think, approximately 85% of your errors in Spanish. So if you write comió, and I'm sorry that if you don't speak Spanish, you won't understand my examples, but here it is. Or there. If you write the wrong kind of there, right, there's 3 kinds of there in English. You write the wrong one, spell checker might not underline it. Why? Because it's a well-formed word in English, right? Spell checker doesn't know that you meant T-H-E-Y'-R-E. She wrote T-H-E-I-R. Spell checker doesn't know that. So what I advocate for, a lot of people disagree with me. Somebody's got their mic on and I can hear their kid riding their tricycle around. What I advocate for is teaching students how to use a spell checker. How to use a spell checker properly, and the 15% of things that a spell checker will not catch for you. That 15% is where I spend those forms right there. Okay? So the first question was about, second question, again, somebody's mic is on. Sounds like they're having almost as much fun as we are. The second question Sonia asked was about grammar. What do you mean by grammar? Do you mean the names of things? Do you mean, esto se llama un pretérito, esto es un imperfecto, and here's when you use the imperfect, and here's when you use the preterite, and here's how it's formed, and I don't care. That's just me, and we can agree to disagree. I don't care if heritage speakers can do those things. If they're going to major in Spanish or minor in Spanish, become Spanish teachers, sorry, yes, you've got to learn that. But if I've got them for 1 or 2 courses, right, fulfilling a language requirement, I don't care if they don't know what a subjuntivo is, if it bites them on the butt. I think a better use of my 16 or 32 weeks is to get them to read and write and write and read and think critically and produce texts in formal Spanish, expressing themselves as well as they can in Spanish. Yes, we do have some grammar uses in this book. It might be less than some people want, but these are the decisions that I made. These are the pedagogical decisions that I made based on my student population and what they can and cannot do in Spanish. I guess to finalize my answer to your question, my main criteria for whether I include a grammar point in this book or not was the following. Does their use of whatever variant they typically use mark them sufficiently as a speaker of a stigmatized variety. What does sufficiently mean? I don't know. What does stigmatized mean? Not the same for everybody. I just use my intuition based on my predominantly Mexican-American population, although some Puerto Ricans and other groups use the same forms. So, for example, aiga for aya, fuistes for fuiste, and a couple of other major things like that we do cover in the book. I'm going to conclude my answer to your question with a great quote by my buddy, Glenn Martinez, who is a titan in heritage language education. And Glenn Martinez said the following: if a student enters your classroom saying aiga and leaves your classroom saying aya, you have added no value. You've added no value. If a student enters your class saying aiga and leaves your class understanding where aiga comes from, where aya comes from, why is one stigmatized and why isn't the other stigmatized, and when they should use each one, then you've added some value. That is my approach to grammar instruction.
All right, thank you, Kim. So we have only about 4 minutes. So Rosie, you're going to be the last one to ask a question. Go ahead, Rosie, whenever you're ready.
Hello, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I have a very specific question. I am directing a heritage language program in which I have to basically train instructors who are not heritage language speakers and who have had no contact with heritage language learners as part of the training. And they always ask me, like, but what is a textbook that we're gonna use? And the textbooks that we're using right now, although they're good textbooks for heritage language speakers, they do not cover some of the aspects. Like, for example, for the beginning class, most of the students in this area are just receptive speakers, well, receptive heritage language learners. So that textbook specifically does not work well. So what do you recommend in those cases?
That's a really, really good question. We started talking about the different profiles of heritage learners, right? Nobody that I know thinks you should go to Latin America, take the book de Castellano, de Arte del Lenguaje, and then use it here in the United States, right? You can't take a Spanish language arts book written for native sort of monolingual speakers from Peru, from Puerto Rico, from Paraguay, and then boom, use it in the United States. What I am suggesting, however, is that you should draw on language arts. And what do I mean by language arts? By language arts, I mean like what I did in my high school English class or my college English class, right? As a native monolingual English speaker. We did reading and writing and literature and argument and all those kinds of things, right? So the proportion of language arts driven curriculum and L2, I'll call it L2-ish driven curriculum is going to vary. If you've got really strong heritage speakers, you might do 75% language arts-ish and 25% L2-ish, and by that I mean like it's got linguistic support because you can't treat them like monolinguals who are educated in Spanish. If you've got third generation people or the folks who are mostly receptive, you might be 75% L2-ish, right, where you're doing some verb conjugations, where you're doing some basic vocabulary, and then the other 25% is where you get some native language arts type stuff in there. So it's really going to depend on your population, what percent is language arts and what percent is linguistic support, okay? As far as a good textbook, it's really, you know, you can go to my website, so you go to potowski.org, and then you go to resources, and what I've done, with the permission of the publishers, is I have scanned, so you'll see PDFs of, as far as I know, all of the commercially published heritage language textbooks. And if I'm missing any, please let me know, because I want them on there. Again, this is with the permission of the authors and the publishers. It's showcasing their work. And so what you can do is look, and I've tried to organize them by, these seem to be for the folks with weaker proficiency, these are for the medium proficiency, these are for the higher proficiency. Is any textbook going to be perfect? No. In fact, Rosie, maybe you need to write one. You know, the more the merrier. We need books out there that address all of our students' needs and the different ways in which all of us might conceive of what's the best use of our classroom time. What is it that we want to develop in our heritage speakers? I'll tell you this, though. Hoy en día, a textbook that's going to focus on, red penning and saying no se dice, and is going to tell them, try to get them to pass for monolingual speakers from some other country, that won't be published today. So we've thankfully moved away from that kind of model and more into a model that recognizes difference, tries to appreciate what the students bring to the classroom, and then build from there.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, thank you, Kim. It looks like we are all out of time. So I want to I want to thank you so very much for sharing your expertise and your time with us. Thank you, everybody, for all your questions. I know that we had more questions and people waiting. So maybe one day I'll convince her to do a part 2, but I am thrilled that she said yes to this part 1.
Oh my God, are you kidding? Lo que la Florencia me pida. Hey, can I make a quick plug for something, Florencia?
Yes.
So if y'all are interested, I'm going to be giving a talk about this book el jueves. So 2 days, is that 2 days from now? The UNAM, the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México here in Chicago, is supporting it. It's 10 a.m. till 11:15 a.m. Chicago time. I'll put the link up here in just a minute. My buddy Javier Munoz Basals calls this book, what did he call it? Gramática subversiva. It's basically all the stuff that people really say in Spanish that the grammar books say is wrong. And that's what the baby that I had with Naomi that I told you about earlier. So if you're interested, I think the talk is going to be in Spanish, if I'm not mistaken. And again, it'll be this Thursday, and I'll give you the link in a second. The name of the grammar book, somebody is asking me. Oh, thank you, my beautiful baby. Gramática Española, Variación Social. I think we should have used Javier's subtitle, Gramática Subversiva, but publishers never let you do what you want to do with the titles or with the covers. So let me get you that link before we go.
Yes, let's share links, and I'll try to see if I can collect some of the many links and resources that we have mentioned today and possibly compile them all in an email to everybody who signed up for the Q&A today. We are definitely way over time, so thank you, Kim, so much again. And everybody keep following us on Facebook or Twitter, and we have more exciting events coming up in the spring. I think Rosie is actually going to do a workshop for us. So if you want to know more about teaching heritage language classes, yes. So just stay tuned. We have lots and lots more to come. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Kim.
This is a wonderful series that you've organized. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day or good night.
Bye-bye, everybody. Gracias.
Gracias.